going to kick it off. Thank you guys so much for your flexibility. I have no idea. Zoom has no idea what's going on. There's this random error code that they've never seen before. So thank you for your flexibility. I'm so excited tonight to have Tara Castaneda with us. Tara's going to be talking about growth. And I can't think of a person more qualified to speak to us about that. So you're going to learn so much. I hope you've got pen and paper ready. Let me tell you a little bit about Tara's growth just over the last couple of months. She had 420 new ambassadors added to her team in January, 540 in February, and for March, we're on day 7. She's already at more than 100 just for the first week of March. So she is doing some really exciting things with her team and just really helping them to grow. And so I'm going to not take a single second more of your time, Tara, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And thank you so much for sharing with us what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. I really am honored and humbled that fellow Jules ask me to speak sometimes. So I take this very seriously, and I really appreciate it, ERIN. So I hope not to steer your team wrong. But tonight we're going to talk about momentum, and I'm going to cut straight to the chase here. And like she said, you might want to take some notes out. But momentum, there's 2 different kinds of momentum, right? There's forced momentum, where it's happening, but you feel like you're running yourself ragged to get it, right? We all kind of know what that momentum feels like. You're growing, but you're just exhausting yourself by forcing this momentum to happen, right? And then there's unstoppable momentum, where it kind of takes on a life of its own, and it just runs. And today I'm going to be talking about the second one. And no, I'm not going to be telling you exacts, do this and do that, and then you'll get this, because unstoppable momentum really doesn't happen that way. Yeah, you need to know the basics of Plexus, basics of network marketing to achieve momentum. You can do event after event after event to achieve the first kind of momentum, which, don't get me wrong, you need that kind of momentum to achieve the unstoppable. So work on that kind of momentum. I certainly did. I actually have a video about that on my YouTube channel. It's I think it's called My 5 Tips for Business Growth. I kind of talk about that, achieving that force momentum to kind of kickstart my team. But today we're going to talk about that tipping point. We always hear about you're pushing the boulder up the hill, and then eventually that boulder is going to fall on the other side, and that's where the momentum kicks in. So we're going to be talking about that tipping point. And I'm going to be talking about 4 things that I noticed that helped my team to kind of achieve somewhat of a tipping point. Now, I'm going to preface this and say I do not know it all. I don't have all the answers. I never will. I'm going to be a constant learner and developing my skill set of this. But these are just 4 things that I saw that seems to be creating that momentum. So I want to step back and say I'm certainly not a know-it-all in this topic. So the first one is you need to strengthen your own leadership abilities. Okay? So learn about the levels of leadership to challenge yourself. I had a breakthrough moment when I found this book. It's John Maxwell, How Successful People Lead. It's a tiny little book, but it talks about the 5 levels of leadership. We actually talked about this book in the leadership training that we just came back from, all Jules did. But this was life-changing for me because it made me understand that there are levels in leadership, and you can work to achieve different levels. So leadership is not earned by a title, but it's earned through consistent action and the ability to influence others. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is influencing others. Whether you are just getting started or you have your own team, your leadership ability is going to play a huge part in your team momentum. They say the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. Another great quote is, the key to successful leadership today is influence, not authority. Or even more to the point, John Maxwell says leadership is influence. So I want you to evaluate, what kind of leader are you? Are you just starting out? Do you have a team of your own? No matter where you are on this journey, now is the time to expand your skill set of a leader. And this book is going to be kind of a guide for you to do that. So I really highly recommend reading this book. And reread it, because there's going to be times where something might not make sense, but you come back to it 6 months later. It's a really good book to revisit. But when you expand your own leadership skill set, This is going to enable you to recruit more people, because as you develop your leadership skills, you're developing your influencing skills. And so if you're just starting out, that's really going to be beneficial to you to kickstart your team, right? It's also going to help you kickstart and develop leaders on your team when you read this and you already have a team. So it's going to be developing leaders on your team. Another great book about this to learn about leadership is the 21 Laws of Leadership, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And I love this one, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. I did a book study with my team on this one. It really does challenge you to step outside your comfort zone, right? So I love this book too. But when you strengthen, I'm looking at some notes over here too, so if my eyes kind of wander, that's why I'm doing it. But when you strengthen your leadership skills, your team's going to follow you, and they're going to rise to the level of leadership that you are. Okay, I want you to really think about what I just said. When you strengthen your leadership abilities, your team's going to rise to that level of leadership where you are. Okay, so when others notice this, and they notice the team kind of rising to the occasion, it can create a snowball effect in your teammates. When they see others rise with you, it inspires others to rise with you all, causing that momentum. It's kind of like the law of the lid, okay? That's talked about in this book here. Quick lesson on what that means. If you're only at a level 3 leadership, you're not going to attract level 4 and level 5 leaders. It's the law of the lid, right? So you want to increase that. You can only gain leaders at your level of leadership and below. So if you want true momentum on your team, that unstoppable momentum that we're talking about, and gain true leadership on your team, you must be willing to invest time in strengthening your own leadership abilities. Okay, so that's my first point. Strengthen your own leadership abilities. Learn about that. Take some time to learn about that. Number 2 is to learn to coach and personally grow your team. Okay, so a lot of times people think, all right, what does it mean to grow your team? Some people say, oh, well, that means increase ambassadors or customers. Okay, I'm not talking about that here. Some people think, okay, it's to encourage or motivate. Okay, it goes much deeper than that. We can motivate and encourage all day long, but if a person doesn't have that internal motivation, that self-encouragement, they probably won't get very far, especially in more challenging times, right? You have to have that internal motivation. So some people say, okay, well, what does growing your team mean? It means developing leaders under you. Right, okay, you're getting closer, but how do you do that? It's developing their skills. What kind of skills am I talking about? To gain that unstoppable momentum and to create leaders underneath you, these are the skills you want to help your team develop or grow. Their network marketing skills, their speaking skills, their teaching skills, their self-talk skills. This book right here has been huge for my team. I did a team book study on this one probably back in early November, and this was huge. Self-talk mindset is so important. What to say when you talk to yourself, by Shad Helmstetter. You want to develop their ability to manage their own attitude. That's a skill set, right? That's a skill set. You want to develop their confidence skills, their coaching skills, their mentoring skills. You want to grow their leadership skills. So for me, I look back at my journey and I go, okay, there was a significant point for me where I realized that I needed to develop my leadership skills. So I poured some time into myself. And once I did that, once I felt like I had a solid footing for that, that's when I developed and began focusing on developing my team's leadership skills. So this works together, okay, guys? Just briefly, I want to discuss the difference between mentoring and coaching. This is a skill set that's really going to take your team to the next level. And it's so important for leaders to understand. So mentoring is providing advice or giving answers when an unknown answer is needed. Okay? So mentoring is, if somebody has a specific question about a Plexus product, right? And you need to give them an answer. Okay? That's mentoring. Or how do I sign somebody up? Here's how you do it. That's mentoring, right? Coaching is very different. Coaching is just asking the right questions so that the person coming to you for advice finds their own answers deep inside. Because you'll find it quite interesting. A lot of people actually already know their own answers. So maybe you have somebody on your team that just can't get their team to grow. And they come to you and they're like, I just don't know why I can't get my team to grow. That's a great coaching opportunity for you to develop your leaders. And this is what's going to create that momentum. Once you start getting these things in place, that's when that momentum is going to kick up. But you ask them questions. All right, if you could think of just one reason why you think your team is at a standstill, what would it be? And they might go, I don't know. Okay, if you could think of just one thing, one reason, what do you think that one reason would be? And I bet you they're going to come up with something. And it kind of takes you off of having to know the answer, takes that pressure off of you, but it also empowers that teammate to dig deep in themselves. It gives themselves confidence. They take ownership in their answer. So it inspires, it empowers, it develops their ability. And most importantly, when people feel empowered and not talked to, but having a conversation with, right, they're developing those answers, that's where internal drive comes from. And that's where you're going to find that unstoppable momentum, okay? So learn to grow your team is my second point. The third point is creating a positive team culture. Okay, so if you're newer and you're just getting started, build upon your larger team's culture. There's a culture on your larger team page. You know it. You can sense it. You can have an idea of what it is. Build upon that and take notes. If you already have a team page and a larger team, then I want you to take a moment and try and define what your current team culture is. Okay, is it what you dream it would have been at this point? There are actually 8 different types of team cultures. The first one is a corrosive team culture. This one is toxic. It allows for drama. There's frustration. It's cliquish. It's very personally, selfishly driven. People oftentimes get on tangents on these threads where it's just negative, right? That's a corrosive team culture. The second one is a country club team culture. It's one of entitlement, where appearances matter. Who appears to be the best? Leadership is based on position rather than their own merit. Okay, maybe a demanding team culture, right? So it's based on that position that you have. The third one is congenial. The main focus is just getting along and preserving harmonious relationships. It's more of a support group and a social club rather than focused on performance, okay? It oftentimes can be too nice and not focused enough on results. So, maybe you have a great bond with your team and the relationships are great, but your team's not really going anywhere. You might be falling into this team culture. The fourth one is comfortable, where results and relationships are of moderate importance, and they have reasonable standards and they're interested in doing well together, but it doesn't really challenge any comfort zones. There's no collective sense of mission on this one. The fifth one is competitive. There's a strong focus on results and a moderate to minimal focus on relationships. Teammates compete to win the favor, to win the attention. This can destroy relationships over time. 6 is cutthroat, where results reign supreme. Talent and performance are the main criteria of success. That's all you are highlighting on your team page is just the results. That can create a cutthroat tension. Winning is the only thing that matters on this. People who don't perform well are often left behind. And so you might see that you had some people with potential and they fall off. They might have been feeling some of this. The 7th one is constructive. There's a solid focus on results and satisfying focus on relationships, but and the team is committed to being successful and they're willing to do the hard work necessary. This is a good place to be. But the prime one is championship. That's the championship team culture. It places a premium focus on results and relationships. There is respect. There's healthy challenges. There's value amongst one another. There's a sense of pride and loyalty, a sense of mission, community, sense of appreciation. They're part of something bigger than themselves. They're proud to yell out, I'm part of this team. bonds that will last a lifetime. So ultimately, you can see that we're all wanting to achieve that last and eighth team culture, that championship team culture. So think about where you are. Let me meet some people here. Just 1 second. Let's see. There we go. Mute. Sorry, guys, I heard some background noise there. So I want you to think, where are you with your team culture? This is going to play a huge piece into your momentum. I promise you that. It's either going to kill it or it's going to make it, your team culture. So remind yourself that every action that you do on your team page is creating and setting a tone for your team culture. What are you highlighting? What are you placing focus on? Just be mindful of that and encourage your team to develop that championship team culture. Take some time to Google these. These are great things to look up and work on developing. The fourth thing is bonding your team together. So when your team feels bonded, several things are going to happen. There's going to be that sense of loyalty, team pride, empowerment across the board, no man left behind. People are going to form accountability partners across the board. Friendships form, which is going to strengthen the whole team. Ideas are shared and they're lifted upon, and people become whole, right? The strengths of everybody strengthens the team. And this is the big one. Energy is created when your team is bonded. I'm not talking about just bonding your rubies to rubies. That's great. I encourage that. But bond all of your sideline sisters and bond all of your silvers together and all your different legs and all your different levels. Create kind of a myriad of bonds across your team. So how are some ways that we can bond our team? Well, you can connect similar ranks together, which I just mentioned. So for example, for my team right now, and I just started this, I started a team page for just my associates to write underneath golds. And I've got them together and we're working on getting them to gold. I've encouraged them to find accountability partners. I've got my golds and senior golds on a ramping up to Ruby page. And I'm doing specific rank training for them and bonding them together. And then I've got my rubies and senior rubies on a gimme that Emmy page, right? That's that emerald page that everybody wants. So I'm connecting them together and helping them encourage each other to form bonds with one another. Encourage accountability partners, and this is a big piece right here, outside of the same leg. So people can get comfortable in their own team, right? They can get comfortable with those relationships that are on one leg. But I encourage you to challenge your team to form accountability partners outside of their up or down line, right? That's going to strengthen the team across the ways. Encourage group brainstorming. Set group goals. Come on, guys, can we hit 25 recruits this month? Let's do it together. Create team incentives. If we do this, then this happens. Do team building workshops or retreats. That might be difficult for some of you that maybe don't have local teams, but if you can, do a weekend retreat at your house with your team, or maybe somewhere, out to dinner, team events. Give your team a voice. This is a big one too. You don't always have to be the one with the answer. I know sometimes we feel like we have to, right, as leaders of our own team, but you don't have to. Allow them to have a voice on their own together. Okay, so how does this momentum, this unstoppable momentum, play with any of these things? When these things come into play, you're doing a few things. You are creating true, strong leaders underneath you. You are strengthening your own leadership ability to help them rise to that occasion. Like I said, you need to know the basics, the products, how to do this or how to do that. But momentum, that true unstoppable momentum, happens when you strengthen your own leadership abilities, when you grow your leaders, when you create that strong team culture and you bond that team together. That's when the magic truly happens and that unstoppable momentum kicks off. I'm going to open it for any questions that you guys have. If you guys have questions, I know this isn't, one of those like do this, do that type of talks, but I want you guys to start thinking bigger, because that's where that big momentum happens. So anyway, I'm going to open it up to ERIN's team for any questions.
Should we unmute the lines?
Yes, I can certainly do that. Great call. Unmute all. There we go.
All right,
If anybody
guys.
has any questions, they can jump up in and ask.
Who has a question?
I do. Okay, my question
Come on.
is, sorry, my question is, when you have a person sign up as a wholesaler, how do you get them excited?
You had all afternoon play.
Okay, why don't we do
Thank
this?
you.
Because I'm getting all these different questions. Okay, so Maria Ramos, you got the question, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to mute everybody but you right now. One second.
Yes. That sounds good.
Okay. You let me unmute you 1 second. Okay, Maria. Are you there?
Okay.
Okay. Where'd you go? It's not unmuting you.
There. Can you
There
hear
you go.
me now?
Unmute. Ah!
Oh, good. Okay, my question is, when you have a ambassador join just strictly for wholesale, how do you? I mean, immediately I want them to be an ambassador and work their business, but I was one of those that I did not want to work my business. So how do you encourage them, or how do you welcome them to a team page without them feeling overwhelmed, or gosh, this isn't for me, or I didn't want to be publicized here as a ambassador? How do you go about that?
Sure. So I love this question because my team was, when I got started, it was full of legs that told me they did not want to work the business whatsoever. So when I got started, I never really signed a business builder that wanted to go get them initially. But what I did was I went ahead and welcomed them to the page, and I would privately message them and say, okay, this is what we do next. I'm going to add you to my team page. This is where, you're going to have product information. There's going to be some business information if you're interested, but it's a great community and support system that people are going through the same things as you are. And so if you ever have any questions or anything, that's a great source for you to have. And so then I welcome them. And if for the size of my team page right now, I also allow them, the out and say, look, there's probably going to be a lot of notifications. So if you want to turn the notifications off, you can. But I didn't do that when I was smaller. But one of my biggest pieces of advice for slowly introducing somebody to the business side is I don't like to use the words start your own business, because that's pretty intimidating. That's pretty serious, right? Especially for somebody that's maybe 1% interested. And so I tend to say, if you ever are interested in getting your products paid for, I'm here to help you with that. It just takes a couple customers and a couple friends to join your team like you joined mine. And I'm happy to help, you do that. And all you need to do is find people who are interested. I'm going to help you with the rest. So take that pressure off of you. We can do some three-way chats or three-way phone calls when people are interested. But I follow your lead. When you're ready, I'm here. And so I give them kind of some grace and some I want them to feel like they're in control, right? Because they ultimately are. I don't ever want to feel like I'm pushing somebody. But what ends up happening is more times than not, I find that the team page is what turns people on to starting the business. And that's why I keep talking about the team page on one of those points over there that I mentioned, because when I got started, I found one person that was interested in kind of running with me, and I locked arms with that person. And then all of these other wholesale people on my team page were like, oh, it's not just Tara doing it, it's so-and-so. And oh, look, and so-and-so joined them. And oh, I think I could do this. And this looks kind of fun. And oh, this is a place where people support and encourage one another. Then maybe I do want to know a little bit more. And so that team page, that culture that you're setting up, it's going to be really important for those wholesale ambassadors to feel not only are you personally inviting them into the business, even though I don't like to use those words, the team page is going to do that indirectly as well. And so do I send them the same information that I would send somebody wanting to work the business? Probably not. But I do send them, what to expect when they take Plexus. And, if you're ever interested in getting your product paid for, here's a little bit of some information. And I take it slow. And I listen for their cues. So let's say that over the first month, they start loving Plexus and they're like, oh my gosh, I love it. My friend at work even asked me, I'm looking great. I'm feeling great. And, oh, well, did they ask you? Yeah, I said that I was taking Plexus. And, oh, well, what'd you say? Well, I told them that I loved it. And, oh, okay. So you have somebody that's interested. Let me help you with that. So see how I'm kind of helping them transition into someone that's sharing more actively in a gentler way. That's kind of how I let it kind of organically happen, if that makes sense. Very slow, to their pace. But that team page is going to play a big part of wholesalers coming around, I think. You're welcome. Any other questions? Let's see. I don't really know how to do this.
Hey, Tara, there's a little chat down at the bottom. What if somebody has a question, they could type it up in that little chat bubble?
That's a perfect
and we
idea.
could go that route.
Yeah, if you've got a question, type it up in the chat and then I'll unmute you.
I'll ask one while we're waiting. From a practical standpoint, this was fantastic. I love this. I think that all the things that you shared are so foundational to long-term success, and that's why I love this. So thank you. So you just went diamond in January, is that right? So leading up to diamond, especially the last 6 to 8 months, is there something practical or concrete that you can point to that you were doing regularly that you think really caused that growth to occur?
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of a synopsis of my past 8 months. Let's see, back in February or March of last year, I went Emerald, and I kind of got stuck at Emerald. I wasn't really increasing in points, and I didn't know what was going on. And that's when one of my really good friends, she's a diamond as well, Laura Monahan, she invited me out to North Carolina to go see Sonia Dudley speak on a Mindset Matters course. And that kind of threw me into what I was talking about here, the leadership, the growing my leadership abilities, the coaching my team, the mindset, all of those things. Now, I didn't know that I was being thrown into that, but that's kind of what happened. And so that's when I started my own leadership skill set training for me. That was huge for me. Like I said, this book, that was huge for me. So that's a practical. I really recommend people reading this. But then I started implementing coaching groups for my team. So I did the first one in beginning of August, and I did this book here, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth that I mentioned. And it was a 6-week coach course that I did for all levels. I capped it at 50 people because I couldn't manage more than 50. And I did little challenges for them. You can actually find, I used Sonia and Helen's format, but I kind of changed it a little bit. You can find that on Plexus Power Tools, I think is their website. But you can find some of their ideas there. And then I did a book study. So every week we read, I think, 2 or 3 chapters in this, and then we did a conference call each Monday night the following week over the chapters. And it was really encouraging people to step outside of their comfort zones. That month, or that 6 weeks, we had, I think, 42 promotions. And it was kind of this tipping point of creating leaders under leaders and creating confidence, that self-confidence. And then we did another one about a month later, which was over this book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, I think in the beginning of November. And we had like 50-something promotions, and it really just skyrocketed. And I think those two, really teaching your team skills, because that's what this was. The 6-week coach class, we're teaching them skills, right? And that's what my number 2 is. When you teach your team skills, it can set you on this trajectory and this snowball effect. And that's literally what happened on my team. So I went from sitting at Emerald points to then going to, I I think it was in August that I increased by like 600 and something points. And then I just shot to Sapphire and shot to Diamond. And it was implementing that, teaching people skills. And it wasn't necessarily, doing events. It wasn't necessarily doing three-way chats. While you need to do those things, that's not what got me to this level, if that makes sense. The three-way chats and the online parties and the opportunity events and, encouraging my team to kind of lock arms, that's what helped me get to, I was struggling and I got to Emerald, but I was like struggling to maintain those Emerald points. But what set me over the tipping point was developing my leadership skills, doing those coach classes, teaching my team to do it for themselves as well, if that makes sense. I hope that helped.
Absolutely.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple of chats. So Amanda Braun says, "What to Say" is a life-changing book. She's on my team. She was part of this. So yes, that's a little feedback there. Thanks, Amanda. And then Gwen says, "I have heard such great things about your online parties. Can you give us some tips?" Sure. So I think my online script is on the Jewels of Plexus, ERIN. I think it's on the old one. It's on there. But it's really duplicatable. This is really duplicatable. So you can send that out to your team, ERIN, if you'd like. Okay. But really it's kind of two things that are super important with online parties is the invitation, because you can execute a really great online party, but it doesn't help if no one's there, right? So the invitation is going to be really important. So doing it at least 2 weeks in advance, making your invitations very personal. Don't just click that Facebook invite. Don't. Call them, private message them, text them, email them. "Hey, I've invited you." You can go ahead and invite them on Facebook. "I've invited you on Facebook to this event. I think it'd be great based on our past conversation. I know you're interested. This is a great place for you to learn. It means so much to me if I saw you there." Or, if you hadn't had a previous conversation, "Oh, I'd love for you to join. I think you'd love this. It's a great, easy, relaxed way to learn about Plexus. No obligations, but make it personal." And then the piece that I think a lot of people forget about the invitation part is once you invite, you have to follow up. So maybe 2 days before the event or maybe 1 day before the event, remind them. Life gets busy, right? "Hey, I just wanted to remind you about the event that we're having. Can't wait." And then maybe that day of, if you didn't get a chance to the day before, "Hey, just reminding you tonight at 8 o'clock. I hope to see you there." That follow-up is going to be important because people sleep between your invitation and the actual party and they may forget, right? So that invitation is going to be really important. And then the second piece that I think is going to be really important, aside from the script, and the script, ERIN, that you guys can see, it literally has like how to create it on Facebook, what to do. I mean, it really is step by step. But one thing that you want to be mindful of is maintaining your audience's attention, because since it is on a Facebook page, they can easily click right out of it, right? Super, super simple for them to click right out of it. So you want to be kind of gauging the energy of that party. If it gets dead, you want to immediately move on to the next post. If people aren't commenting, you need to move on. If I don't get a comment within 15 seconds, and I kind of time it, right? If I don't get a comment within 15 seconds on one of my posts, I immediately go to the next one. So I try to have it between 1 and 3 minutes for each post, depending on the length of the post, and then I move on. Get your fellow teammates involved as well. That third-party validation is going to play a huge piece in your online parties. Get them to comment, get them to love on that post and say how much they love Plexus. That's going to reaffirm your potential's opinion about Plexus. So that would be my tips on the online party. Let's see. Tanya says, "I love your video on making your posts personal. How do you encourage new team members to be brave and make their first personal post, or make those personal posts?" It's a great question. Again, it's kind of you reassuring them, "Hey, I follow your lead. If you're comfortable, I think this would be great." But also reassuring them that, one, they're not going to die if they do it, right? You want to just encourage them that they're probably going to make a positive change. And so just really kind of being that gentle voice in their head to encourage them to try and step outside of their comfort zone. Remind them that they don't have to make it too personal, meaning if they have like some really personal information that they don't want to share, they don't have to do that yet. But the key to making it personal is making it about themselves. So now that can range from a level 1 personal to a level 10 personal. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to. Some people think, okay, if I tell my whole testimony, they've got to know every single bit and piece, and that can be overwhelming, right? So you can kind of reassure them in that sense. But I love to get them started in a more easy way. That first personal post can be a little scary. And so, I oftentimes encourage them to just kind of get started a little slower. So maybe make their first post and say, hey, y'all, I'm so excited. And I've been taking Plexus, and I've noticed better energy and more solid sleep. And so something just, it's personal, but a little bit more surface level, if you know what I mean, to just kind of ease them into being more public on Facebook, if that makes sense. And then they're going to find that it gets easier over time. So if they can just make those first couple of personal posts, where it's not pulling the whole curtain back quite yet, they're going to ease into it and be more confident in doing that. And then before you know it, they're going to shock you, and they're going to make a video, and you're going to be like, I thought you were nervous about doing that. And they're like, no, I'm used to it now. So just ease them into it. My best advice there. Let's see. Maria Rama says, I really, really like your video on how to go Ruby. Wow, awesome tips there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maria. It's been a day since I made that, so I don't really remember what exactly I said, but I'm glad that it's helpful for you guys. ERIN, any more questions from you or from your team?
Do you guys have any other questions? A great opportunity to pick her brain. I really, really loved this, Tara. I was coming into it. I wasn't sure what approach you would take, and I really like this because of the foundational knowledge gaining, and that we can grow ourselves in. So, in our teams, really helping to create leaders. So, thank you so much. Thank you too for your flexibility and letting us jump on your Zoom. And we got another one. We got a late entry in the question realm here.
Oh, okay.
What about scheduling three-way calls?
We seem to have a hard time doing that. Okay, so let's see. I like to use this verbiage. So a lot of times when you're just getting started, or when you're encouraging someone to get started, verbiage plays a huge role into things, right? I've mentioned that a few times. I don't like to say start a business, right? Because that verbiage can scare people. So here's the verbiage that I like to use with my team. So usually when you're doing three-way calls or three-way chats, it's with somebody that's newer to Plexus, that's newer to sharing, right? And so you want to explain the why you are doing it. Because for some people that don't understand what a three-way chat is or three-way phone call, they can think of it like a sales call, and that's really not what this is, okay? So you want to remind them the why when you're doing it. So why would I be doing this? Well, you can simply say, I know that you're newer, and when you get started, you might feel a little nervous to do it, and I want to take that pressure off of you. So all you've got to do is find people that are interested, and I'm gonna kind of have that conversation with them, so you can watch and kind of learn as you earn type thing, and see how I have these conversations. So it's a great hands-on training opportunity for you, where you don't feel pressure, or you don't have that worry of saying something wrong or not knowing how to say something. So this really is to help you. And here's a great way to start a three-way chat or a three-way phone call. And so this is what your level 1, you're inviting them and their potential on. This is what they would say to their potential. Hey, Mary Sue, I'm super excited that you're interested in Plexus. I'm going to join you with my really good friend and sponsor, Tara. She's a wealth of knowledge. She's been with Plexus for XYZ, right? This is where you're building up the confidence in that person, right? You want to build that confidence up. She's a wealth of knowledge. She's been with Plexus for XYZ. Since I'm still newer, I want to make sure that we get your questions answered appropriately and to the best of our ability. So she's going to help us with that. She's great. She's wonderful. I'm going to throw you guys in a three-way chat, or when would be a good time for us to do a phone call? And, of course, zero pressure, but I just want to make sure that we get your questions answered correctly. So with that, you're creating a trustworthy environment, right? You're showing them, look, I'm doing this to make sure we take care of you. They're gonna respect that. They're gonna appreciate that, and it makes it a lot easier for people to jump on that three-way chat or three-way phone call. I've actually never had anybody come back and say, no, I don't want to do that three-way call when they use that verbiage. So that's a really gentle way to explain why you're doing it, right? That why piece is important for not only us to tell our level ones why we're encouraging the three-way chat, but why we're wanting to do that three-way chat with the potential as well. Hopefully that answers that.
That's huge. Thank you. I think the verbiage helps so much because a lot of times we step into landmines that we don't even mean to and really scare people off. So that's really helpful.
You know, one of my favorite analogies that I read. Oh, I'm so sorry. It kind of stopped. I thought you were.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying one of my favorite analogies that I read when I was researching network marketing when I first got started was the feeding somebody soup. Has anybody heard that analogy? No? Okay, so when you're sharing Plexus with a potential, or when you are inviting someone to do the business but not using those words, right? We're not using those words. When you're inviting somebody to do the business, you want to feed them soup, right? Now, you wouldn't take a bowl of hot soup and pour it on somebody's head, would you? No, no, you wouldn't, right? Instead, you'd take a spoon and a small bit to make sure it wasn't too hot and very gently feed them bite by bite, slowly, right? It's the same thing when you're talking to somebody about Plexus. It's the same thing when you're inviting somebody to join you to do the business. Same thing. I know a lot of times we feel like, okay, we have to be an expert and we've got to tell them everything we know. And, oh, if they just know this information, they're going to want to do it. And da-da-da-da. And you just have this, it's just too much sometimes. And so when you scale back your verbiage and you really look at it and you flip it and you look at it and go, okay, if somebody were coming to me with this information, is it just enough to intrigue me and leave me wanting more? Or are they pouring soup over me? Is it too much? So really listen to yourself. You know, I encourage my team to do exercises in front of a mirror a lot. You know, if you're talking, if you're wanting to build your skill set on talking to strangers about Plexus, stand in front of your mirror. It's going to feel really strange the first couple times you do it, but stand in front of your mirror and have a conversation with yourself about Plexus. Listen to what you're saying. Are you nervous? Do you send off nervous signals? Are you saying too much? Where do you get caught? Are you using appropriate body language? When we take, when we look at ourselves introspectively and take note of ourselves, that's where not only are you growing your leadership abilities, which was my number one, but you're growing your skill set, and then you can teach your team. But I encourage people to do that a lot. Stand in front of a mirror and have a conversation. You're going to hear yourself and go, okay, maybe I could work on that.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And then let's see, Anna Vale, I just love your joy and contagious energy. Oh, love you, girl. Thank you, Anna. You're so sweet. Any other questions? Happy to take a couple more if you guys have any questions. All right,
Terry, you're awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and your knowledge and your expertise, and it's really fun watching you continue to have success, and we can see why for sure. So thank you for your time.
You are so welcome. I've got another question if we want to do one more question that just popped up. I don't want to leave anything behind.
If you're willing, absolutely.
Yeah, of course. Brianna Wallace, I've had some ambassadors turn off their backup orders. When I have followed up with them, I'm having a really hard time even getting a response back from them. Should I just move on or keep trying to follow up? That's a great question. We've all been there, right? We've all been there. At some point, there is going to be a bless and release, I believe. But okay, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. I've had so many different people turn off their backup orders, and then a year later they come back and they want to start up, or 3 months later they want to start back up, or 6 months later they want to start back up. The key is to maintain that personal relationship with them, right? If you are only following up because of Plexus, they're going to sense that. And so if you maintain your friendship with them and you keep that friendship door open, that's when I see and have seen on my team those white lines come back, right? So do I think you should just move on? No. I think you should maintain that friendship that was there to begin with, most definitely. Should you scale back on asking about Plexus? Maybe. But, you know, I always try and make sure that they know that the Plexus door is open, but first and foremost, the friend door is open. So let's say that someone turns off and I reach out to them and they don't get back to me. I might a week later send them a message and say, hey girl, just making sure you saw my message. I know life gets busy, but I'd love to just chat with you and see if there's something that we can do to help you. And girl, we need to catch up. It's been too long. I want to see how you're doing. You know, just kind of following up gently, but also with that friend aspect is going to be really important. And then at some point, yeah, you're probably going to not want to message them every month about their backup order. But again, it's more about leaving that friendship door open than anything, if that makes sense.
That's great advice.
Anybody else? Okay, Miss ERIN, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, thank you, man. I just appreciate you. Keep taking them. All right. Well, it's just a little bit past 9 in Central Time. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this call. Thank you guys all for hopping on. And Tara, once again, thank you so much for your expertise. Tara did record this, so she'll forward it to me and I'll post it on our team page so that we can share it with our teams and make sure that they get this great information. So thank you, Tara. Have a great evening.
Bye, you guys.